art that he was making, because could this man, even this great man, basically escape from the market? Because there is one instance in which, when I kept reading, and this was, Island Records, which basically owns his estate, and they had this, huge fight with another performance of Bob Marley's, and they never got access to 15 hours of raw footage in which he was giving an outdoor performance, and they say this is, his best performance so far. So, these 15 hours of raw unedited footage is just allowed to, be put in cold storage, merely because, these capitalists cannot negotiate, cannot, come to a successful business model in which they can buy it off. And so, again, when we talk about capitalism, you have to, again, I want to go back to his own politics and how his politics became very difficult for, the general capitalists of the world and for everybody, and how difficult, how artists of today have so much to learn from him, because, for instance, Bob Marley's song with Zimbabwe, which talks about the liberation struggle, and which itself was very inspiring to members of the Zimbabwe Liberation Army. So the kind of manner in which he was behaving was, it's not just making one song somewhere about it, but he in fact participated in Zimbabwe's Independence Day celebrations. He was right there when they were declared independent, and he was not only taking a stand on Zimbabwe, he was also taking a stand against apartheid in South Africa, and he was doing all of this. So I would like to read some of what he had to say, and I want to reflect on what it actually means, because see, this is a statement that Bob and his wife Rita gave. I made a contribution to the freedom of Zimbabwe. When we say Natty going to dub it up in Zimbabwe, that's exactly what we mean. Give the people of Zimbabwe what they want. Now they got what they want. Do we want more? Yes. The freedom of South Africa. So Africa, unite, unite, unite. You're so right, and let's do it. Zimbabwe now, South Africa next. When all Africa free, all black people free. So, when he was making this kind of a statement, and he was so, he really did not bother about the fact that, okay, this is nationalism. Should a writer talk about a national movement somewhere else? It's none of my business. The same kind of attitude that you see, and especially I very often get to see in artists of today. Everybody just wants to keep their mouths, so tightly silenced when it comes to a national struggle. See, for instance, I am a Tamil woman, and I want to make use of this opportunity to talk about the LTT. What I want to say is that the LTT itself had a poet, a very famous poet. It's poet laureate called Puduvai Rathanadurai. So the same, exactly 1 week from now, but 4 years ago in 2009, Puduvai Rathanadurai surrendered. He surrendered with a white flag. And what was he saying? Everybody, the initial list that came out, Puduvai Rathanadurai's wife, everybody said he had surrendered. He was just making music. He was just making poetry and songs. But then many months later, his name comes up, his wife's name comes up in the list of war widows. What happened to a man who surrenders with a white flag? And this man is not somebody who is bearing arms. He's just somebody who is a poet, and who speaks about a poet who is caught in the national struggle. And why are in 2009, 100,000 Tamils died in Sri Lanka. In Elam they were killed merely because every Tamil was seen as a terrorist. Why are our writers, and especially the national media, the English media, why were they so silent about it? And everybody was acting like it's happening in some far off continent which is beyond Antarctica. It was happening right here. India was funding the war, but they were so silent about it. So you have to understand, compare Bob Marley as an artist, compare his integrity, that he was talking about Zimbabwe, he was talking about South Africa, and he is sitting in Jamaica and speaking all these things. But look at our own intellectuals, look at our own artists, and look at this entire silence of the mainstream when it came to a genocide, the kind of silence that we maintained, and how we did not even acknowledge that what was going on is a genocide. We did not hold our governments culpable of genocide. So why are we misled into thinking that art has to be apolitical? Why are we thinking that art has to be all the time under general anesthesia, so that there is no kind of awakening among the people, there is no kind of uprising among the people? So shouldn't we actually relook at the way art and artists define themselves? And shouldn't we actually also, as people, forget as artists, shouldn't we as people demand that artists speak on this? Demand them that being apolitical is not a choice, that it cannot be a choice. In in a place like this. So I mean, this kind of a distancing is so entirely opposite to what he was doing, and I believe that when they see him, they at least get the kind of lesson and go back into being different. And wait a second. Yeah, and the next thing that I want to also speak about him was, what did the capitalist culture do to his very particular the kind of music, and how were they appropriating him at various points of time. For instance, when he was talking about today in the West especially, I mean, and this is like, even if I was going to Occupy Wall Street and I was taking part on those protests in New York, the only thing that you could see of Bob Marley very visibly, very iconically everywhere, was this message of one love, and which had its own Rastafarian roots. But if we look at it closely and if we try to understand, of all the things that he said, I mean, he was taking stand against gender, he was taking stand against gender politics, or he was taking stands against, racism, or taking stands against imperialism. But for all of this, the only message that has been diluted, I mean, just as you talk about, in dialectical materials, about how when the quantity changes, the quality changes. So when he had to become international, when he had to become global, they had to dilute Marley in such a way that they could only sell this message of one love. The way, I mean, that's the only thing that really bothered to them, the only thing that they wanted to keep. Because see, this whole message of love and peace is so easy, you can sell it to anybody at all. So this was what they wanted to give to the people. So the second thing again is, in his own lifetime, what was happening to him. For instance, there was one album of his, this third album, that he wanted to call Naughty Dread. Naughty, of course, refers to the dreadlocks, and for him, Naughty referred to a Rastafarian, somebody who was seen as powerful because of the way his appearances were non-conformist and all of this. But when the industry was marketing it, they changed its name to Natty Dread, and Natty, of course, meant a very stylish, chic person. So and it seems Bob Marley himself was very upset with this